Through to the chair. We're ready. Good evening, everyone. Today we are meeting at Council Chambers in Shire Hall for September 18th, 2024 Planning and Development Committee meeting. I am Sam Brandehorst, Councillor of Athol Ward, and I'll be running the show today. Members of the public who wish to speak at a Planning and Development Committee meeting are invited to register with the clerk's office in advance. These meetings are public meetings as required under the Planning Act and will deal with the planning applications listed on the agenda. Tonight's agenda lists all the items before the committee for consideration. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. The recordings from this meeting will be published on the county's website immediately and can be viewed by selecting Live Stream tab on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Personal information collected as a result of this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making decisions on these matters. For each item listed on the agenda under Section 4, I will ask whether staff, applicant, or agent, a member of the public, or council has questions or concerns regarding the item. If there are no concerns or questions from anyone, I will order the matter and recommendations to be added to Section 5, the consent agenda. Under Section 5, I will call for a motion to approve all items and any associated recommendations as a single motion. The minutes from this meeting shall report matters approved as part of the consent agenda. If there are concerns or questions from staff, applicant, or agent, member of council, or member of the public has registered, lost her there, or is present to speak, the item is recommended, or the item and its recommendations will be moved to Section 6, items for consideration. Under Section 6, the committee will hear these comments and each item will be discussed and voted on individually. The Planning and Development Committee will make a recommendation to approve with conditions or to deny a planning application. Council has the final say on applications. All bylaws on this agenda will be approved at the next available council meeting. Following council's decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipal clerk before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. So, let's call this meeting to order. Can I have a confirmation of the agenda? Councillor Roberts, Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a Robert St. Jean motion that the agenda for the Planning and Development Committee meeting of September 18, 2024 be confirmed.
All those in favor? That carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. I see none, so we'll move on to Section 4. So we have, just to move things along tonight, Section 4.1 and 4.2 already have registered comments, so we're going to move them straight into Section 6 to be discussed. So that only leaves 4.3. Sorry for moving my agenda over. So that only leaves 4.3. Is there any questions from staff, applicant, agent, member of the public, and or council on number 4.3? I'm seeing none, so we're going to move 4.3 to the consent agenda. So, can I do? Yep. Do I need a motion to? Yep. Councillor Princeton, you're just ready to go tonight. Okay, and Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Princeton Pennell motion that 4.3 be approved by unanimous consent on tonight's agenda.
Okay, all those in favor? Great, that carries. So that's going to bring us past the consent. So now we're moving on to the consent. No, we're done the consent agenda. Cool. So we're done Section 5. Let's move on to Section 6. This will be 4.1, which is now 6.1 of Ameliasburgh. 2 seconds. So this would be 910 County Road 3. Does staff have any comments on this file? And I believe, Madam Clerk, you'd like to speak on it?
So through the chair to committee, just further to the correspondence received by the agent, and due to this unprecedented situation based on the applicant and agent's inability to attend this evening's meeting, I'm informing committee of the applicant's and agent's request for a deferral to a future meeting.
Okay. Is there any, so then the applicant and agent, since they are not here, they won't be speaking on it. We have one member of the public who has registered to speak. Pardon any of my mispronunciations, Ryan Vieira. I will just say, because this is potentially getting deferred, it is up to you if you would like to speak now or wait till the next meeting when this is going to have decision, but it's up to you. Yeah, go for it. Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Ryan Vieira. I am the resident and homeowner of 30 Wanamaker Lane, including my wife, Rebecca, and my daughter, Lucy. She's 3. They're home going to bed tonight. I want to first acknowledge how happy I am to be here and that this is getting moved along in a timely manner at this point. I'm an elementary school teacher. I don't know all the ins and outs of planning and development, but I've learned a lot, and I want to take a second to acknowledge the planning staff that have been involved in this file for some time now. Mr. Michener and his staff, Jaspreet Dial, James Griffith, and currently Emily Overload have been excellent at helping me understand the pieces that are involved with this. This particular application is not entirely complex, I don't think. We have, if you look at the GIS maps and the survey sketch involved with this, I think this, our complicated group of lots involved on Wanamaker Lane, a shared right-of-way, is just not to the same consistency to the rest of the community. To the east, to the west, we have rectangular lots on County Road 3, and this application shows a desire to be similar to the rest of the community. There's all kinds of complexities with shared access of a right-of-way, and I think this application just shows that the applicant and myself, who is benefiting from this, would like to see things just similar to the rest of the community. Involved with the application is a traffic safety study, and I think it also shows that there are, on the bend of our road at County Road 3 at 910, there are a number of people servicing that right-of-way, and it's on a bend, and it can be really kind of tight there, and as an avid runner on the road, I can see where there are a lot more traffic coming down there. So if we can spread out the access points as involved in this application, we're a safer community to be living in. So just like we see on Rednersville Road, County Road 3, we see rectangular lots, and we're not asking for anything that anybody else doesn't have. And I'm hopeful that this consent application can go forward. I understand that there's a deferral in place, and I plan to be there that day as well, and we can hopefully move along with this process. So thank you to everybody here and to the planning staff for their work on this file. It's been a long stretch and a complicated one, so thank you to the clerk's office today for their correspondence right up until today to let us know what's going on. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Well, just wait in case there's other questions from council for you. Councillor Princeton?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry, can you just tell me which house is?
Yeah. So I have the central.
The central plot. Okay,
that's one, and then this one here.
We'll be going with.
In that middle, yeah. And
Yeah.
then this will be severed in here, and then it would be that rectangular lot all the way from the road down to the water.
Perfect. That's what I assumed, but I missed that part of it. So.
Oh, for sure.
But you're okay with the deferral, but you're just happy that they didn't take it back off the table. Okay. You'd like to have it done, but.
Yeah, absolutely. I planned on it coming here and hopefully getting some good news, but here we are, so we'll work through that process.
Okay.
With the applicant.
Thank you.
Any other councillors? Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Is there anyone that would like to put the motion of, oh, no, Councillor Pennell. Yep.
Do we not need a motion to accept that?
No, not through,
It's still a delegation, that was all.
yeah, just still the public statutory meeting, Councillor Pennell, so we are allowed without the receipt. Yeah, thank you.
Cool, thank you for that clarification. On the ball tonight. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this? Nope, okay, we're gonna move on. Then I believe we need a motion for deferral. Anybody want to put that on the floor? Oh, yeah, go for it.
Sorry,
Councillor.
Madam Chair. I just have one question for staff before the deferral motion goes on, if I may. So I know this is Emily's file, but maybe Michael can answer. Lately on I'm not opposed to this by any stretch, and I can totally get what's happening, but lately on any severances we get, I'm thinking of County Road 2, we severed 2 lots, and the comment was, we want 1 driveway coming out of 2 lots. County Road 1, you did the same thing. Now you're recommending 3 driveways. According to the sketch, I'm seeing 3 driveways, so that's why I'm looking for clarity because it seems to be,
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Prinzen. The sketch shows 3 individual driveways. We've asked that 2 of them be combined into 1, much like we've asked on, as you indicated, on other ones. I believe there's a condition that speaks to that. That's one of the reasons why they are asking for deferral.
So sorry, Madam Chair, if I can have a follow-up, that's changed from agenda page number 18 because it shows new access, retained access as 3 different accesses. So my math shows that's 3. So so you're saying that's changed and that's why they're asking for a deferral?
Yes, we've asked them to put 2 of the accesses together, so they'd have to come up with another sketch that would show them joined. Or in the conditions at least show us how they're going to join the 2 of the entrances. One of the entrances actually is along the property line, so creating a shared entrance is between, I believe it's the eastern one and the middle one, isn't that much of an issue.
So we're still gaining 1 access.
Correct.
Okay, I'll support the deferral for sure.
Okay, is there, Councillor St. Jean? Oh, yeah, let's go for it. Okay, Councillor St. Jean moving
Happy to move the deferral.
Thank you. And anyone want to second that? Councillor Hirsch?
Okay, so, Craig, how do you want this worded, Madam Clerk?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, instead of displaying, if it's okay, I'll just read this one. So that at the request of the applicant and agent, report DS-57-2024 of the Development Services Department dated September 18th, 2024 regarding consent file numbers B19-22, B20-22, and B21-22, and zoning bylaw amendment file number Z25-22, and the statutory public meeting be referred to staff to work with the applicant and agent to be considered by the Planning and Development Committee at a future meeting. And then just to be clear, this is a referral motion, not a deferral, just on the notion that potentially any of the recommendations or conditions might change.
Okay,
Amazing.
what she said.
Thank you for that clarification from deferral to referral. Okay, I'm gonna call a vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor? That carries. Now the main motion as amended. No, we don't need to. Cool. Keep going. So now, thank you for that. And now we're going to move on to the new 6.2, which was 4.2. This is file number, this is the one on Sandy Hook. So I am going to ask we do have the applicant and agent already wanting to, or staff, before I forget about you, would you like to comment on this file first?
Yeah, so we'll just give a brief sort of introduction and overview of the project. Let me get this going. So a bit of background. This is an application for a plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. The subject property is located south of the Millennium Trail, north of Sandy Hook Road, and it is designated town residential in the Picton urban area secondary plan. And there is a little bit of EP on the southwest corner of the property. The town residential policies of the secondary plan are applicable, as well as the environmental protection policies of the secondary plan. And in addition, there are Warings Creek protection policies, which are also applicable to this property given its location. So the development consists of 905 residential lots or residential units. It is to be developed over several phases, with phase one consisting of 178 units that would be accessed by Heineman Street, and Heineman Street would be improved to a full municipal standard road. The county hosted a public meeting on July 30th, 2024, which was fairly well attended by approximately 50 residents. And at that meeting and during this the review phase of this development, staff have noted several themes and comments from public. And before I pass things off to the developer where they're describe in detail what this development actually is, I thought I would give an overview of what we've heard so far from the public and how we feel that the application has addressed a lot of those concerns. So there's approximately 7 themes that we've heard: housing affordability, impacts to Warings Creek and the watershed, general environmental concerns, traffic concerns and safety, impacts to individual properties, feasibility of servicing and the feasibility of future street connections, and then impacts to the Millennium Trail. Now, this isn't meant to be an encompassing list of all potential concerns, but these are just some of the themes that we've heard over the past several months and what arose from the public meeting that we had on July 30th. So housing affordability, there are policies in the secondary plan that deal with housing affordability and how it is to be addressed, and there are some guidelines in the plan which this development touches on. And specifically, it ties into various housing types that are proposed within the development. There is a wide range of housing types, right from single detached homes, back-to-back townhouses, stacked townhouses, semi-detached homes, and there are apartment buildings proposed as well. It's just not on that list. So generally, increasing the housing stock in general should provide opportunities for attainable housing, plus the different types of housing that is being proposed will result in more opportunities for attainable housing. The higher density forms of development are also being proposed in phase one, which includes the 178 units, which I said previously. Impacts to Warings Creek, there's been quite a bit of work that's gone into this. The table on the right is from the consulting engineer's functional surfacing study, and it lists all the various types of low impact design features which could be incorporated into this development. There are opportunities in the parkland dedication and within the open space blocks, the roadways, the various residential blocks to include low impact design features which would reduce overall impacts on the watershed. Some of these include vegetated wetland buffers, grassy swales, the actual stormwater pond design itself, green rooftop design for the multi-residential buildings, all of which can be incorporated into future site plan agreements, and all of which are spoken to in the conditions of approval, which tie a lot of this stuff together and force the requirement for future approvals and to incorporate these aspects into the detailed design of the development. The stormwater management plan has been peer reviewed by an independent consultant retained by the county, and they were satisfied that the results of that review were that consultant was satisfied that the conditions of the secondary plan, particularly the Warings Creek policies, had been addressed. There are general environmental impact concerns that we've heard. An environmental impact study was completed by a qualified biologist, and within that document there are a long list of recommendations which have been incorporated into our draft plan conditions. There have been discussions that involved the Warings Creek Association, and some of those discussions have resulted in additional recommendations which have come out in an addendum provided by the consulting biologist, particularly dealing with mitigation and reducing the risk to Blanding's turtles, and creating appropriate habitat for them, and reducing the risk for vehicle injuries and things of that nature. The EIS was peer reviewed by a consultant retained by Prince Edward County, and they were satisfied that the environmental impact study met all necessary conditions. So we've heard that there are some traffic and safety concerns. It is a large development, and so there is going to be an increase in traffic over time. The traffic study, which was provided, does have some recommendations, but it does. One thing to keep in mind that the recommendations do span a number of years. It goes right through to 2045, which tries to take into account all the various potential developments that we could see. Within the development itself, there are designs for multi-use pathways, sidewalks, lighting, and landscaping. We've heard concerns from individual property owners about potential impacts to their property, and through detailed design there'll be requirements for grading plans, the stormwater management pond that will ensure that there's no drainage issues on any neighboring properties, landscape plans, vegetative buffers, and tree preservations are all required in the draft plan conditions. Fencing and development boundaries where appropriate are included in the draft plan conditions. And then, of course, the zoning bylaw itself, which establishes permitted uses and provisions which will ensure compatibility with surrounding development. Feasibility of servicing and street connections. We've heard that that this is not feasible, or that the development is premature, and that, in our opinion, is not the case. The development will be registered in phases, and the applicant has demonstrated servicing feasibility for phase 1 with additional options for future phases. In our opinion, the extension of George Wright Boulevard is feasible through negotiation with various landowners or expropriation if required. Ultimately, the extension of George Wright Boulevard, even though it's shown on our draft transportation master plan, isn't necessarily required for this development to proceed, but it is something that the municipality and the staff of the planning department would like to see move ahead. So that is why it's included in the design, and over time we believe that will come to fruition. We've heard impacts or concerns about impacts to the Millennium Trail, and this was discussed a few months ago when the adjacent development came before us. And this particular project has, as I've tried to illustrate on the sketches, roads C, D, and E provide an opening to a window street which will run parallel to the trail. And this will provide for enhanced safety and provide opportunities for active transportation for future residents of this community. And multi-residential blocks will also front onto the trail and provide direct access for those residents onto the Millennium Trail, and provide opportunities for those residents to take advantage of active transportation opportunities. So in conclusion, our opinion is that the subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment conforms to the Picton Urban Secondary Plan. It provides opportunities for affordable housing, and the application has demonstrated that it is feasible, and it will enhance and protect Waring's Creek. The municipality will be assuming over 8 hectares of open space. In our opinion, it represents good planning, and we are recommending that it be approved tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions for staff at this point? Councillor Pennell.
When we look at subdivisions and we're saying we want to get affordable housing, so we increase the density, this means that the builder is definitely going to be able to make more money off that development because they can build a lot more within it. But what I want to know is, as we move forward, how do we, as a municipality, ensure these houses are affordable? If I move in from Toronto and have a job that's paying $100,000 a year, certainly I can afford to pay, we'll say $900,000 to $1 million for a house. So if we say, well, we got affordable, they're going to be 10% less. Who can afford it? And is there any way, as we look into the future, how we can basically say affordable housing is actually at a point of being affordable? I've never saw nothing coming forward from planning so far that guarantees that for the future residents of this county. Is there any way we can do that?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Purnell. This is a market-driven subdivision. We do not determine what the price point is going to be on a unit. All we can do is ensure that there's a variety of units that are built at a smaller or a denser size, and then that determines what the price is going to be. If you have smaller square footage or a different type of development where you utilize shared walls, like in a back-to-back situation or a semi-detached or a townhouse, you're obviously going to have economies of scale, which will help drive down the price of that particular unit. Is it going to be affordable as per our definition? Probably not. Will it be attainable? Most likely. Any affordable housing will need to be subsidized in some way, shape, or form, either by this municipality or some level of government. That's just the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, that's when we're dealing with market-driven subdivisions. They do have a bottom line. They do have to make money, or else they simply don't exist. Are they willing to partner with us on creating affordable housing? My guess is yes, but that's a discussion between the developer and our housing people. So whether it's this plan of subdivision or others that come before you, I ask that they contact our housing people to see if there's perhaps a deal that can be made. I believe we do have one subdivision where we're negotiating with the developer to have some affordable housing. So it's not like we're not trying to do it, it's just there has to be an appetite on both sides to work together to generate that.
Thank you. We're going to go to Councillor Pennell and then Councillor Grosso.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Matt, for your comments. I do have a couple of questions just based on what you said. So I am a little concerned about the email that we received about the extension of George Wright Boulevard. and I do feel like this is something that should potentially be negotiated before we move forward any further. So I would, and the word appropriation, I think, raises alarm bells in my mind as a counselor. And I think a positive negotiated process in early days is honestly the best approach. So I might consider putting a deferral on until we see more information about where the different groups are. But I have a question regarding your wording that LID's development and some of the, or I think the quote would be the recommendations in the EIS, which by the way, they were very good EIS. The EIS and the peer review were very good. That those recommendations could be, I think in quotation marks, could be, but I'm just wondering if I'm trying to scroll through the agreement very quickly. Is it mandatory that those recommendations be adopted?
Through the chair to Councilor Naughton, just on your first point about the choice REIT negotiation, we agree that a negotiated street that would connect to George Wright or to Lois Parkway would be ideal. Whether that happens sooner or later, it's a bit up in the air because we don't have them at the table right now. One thing that perhaps when the developer and their consultant begin to speak is they can demonstrate that the actual connection to Lois Parkway is not required for this development, that there are options for connections elsewhere. George Wright Boulevard going south to Sandy Hook Road would create a second access point for them. In addition to that, there's a potential for a street connection to the west as that development continues to move along. So for future phases, there are other opportunities for street connections and also for servicing connections too. So while it is nice and it is ideal to think that we'll get a connection to Lois Parkway quickly, it is not necessarily a requirement for this development.
Chair, can I have a follow? Oh, sorry, Matt, you were going to continue on.
And then,
to the other.
yes, to your second point, the recommendations of the EIS are mandatory required. Yes.
Mandatory. Okay, yes. So I'll take the could be out of my mind and switch it to will be. Is that?
That's correct.
Thank you. So now, just going back to the road situation, Chair, is it okay if I just follow up a little?
Yep, last one.
Thank you. So that does leave somewhat, that does leave a source of concern. This is 900 potential units going onto these hectares, and that's an awful lot of units. And if there are only 2 outlets initially, as they're being created, I'm a little concerned about that. The George Wright Boulevard connection point seems to be quite important, and the westerly road to Sandy Hook looks like it's going to be some time too. So I'm wondering if it's a mistake to not work that out first. I'm still left with concern. I hear what you're saying. Is that not really limiting the ease of access for the people who will be moving into this very high density community? And also a little concerned about any potential emergencies. Do you feel like these 2 initial entrances are adequate? For example,
through the chair, yes. I mean, this will be looked at on a phase-by-phase basis. Each phase will be registered separately. So for phase 1, we're confident that there's no safety issues with the development for phase 1, which is accessed through an improved Hindman Street. Future phases do require a second a second access point. But an extension through to Lowell's Parkway, while desired, is not an ultimate requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to build on Matt's response. The entire development will be draft approved. And as new phases get registered, we have the ability through the Planning Act to ask for new studies if they go stale dated. So if we're into phase 3 and we're 12 years from today, obviously those traffic studies are going to be pretty useless. So we can ask for an updated study that would then determine whether or not that phase could move forward based on the entrances that are there today. Both Matt and I have tried desperately with Choice REIT to, along with the developer, to come up with a compromise and a solution to the George Wright quandary that we're in today. However, Choice REIT has now decided to play ostrich and bury their head in the sand, and we haven't heard from them in 3 months in regards to trying to negotiate this. That's why we use the word expropriation. If they don't want to come to the table, we have a transportation master plan that's basically saying we need this access. So if they don't want to play ball, then as a municipality, we always have the hammer through expropriation to obtain that needed right of way, so that we can get people to go north to shopping or to other locations within our municipality. This is the first time I've ever seen a developer or a commercial developer refuse to have traffic go in front of their store. I'm at a bit of a loss as to why we're even having this discussion, and they should be willingly to want to give a piece of property that actually functions as a road today for this development. But again, they've gone away, they've hidden, they don't want to talk with us, they don't want to talk with the developer, it seems. So we're a bit of at a standstill. We'd love to have a better answer for you, but that is the answer we have today.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Grosso and then Councillor Prinzen.
Thank you. Out of those 904 units, have they said what percentage or how many units would be affordable or attainable?
Through the chair, I believe the developer has a presentation, and maybe through their presentation, we could gain some of those questions, answers to those questions about some of those details.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's put that one on hold. And Councillor Prinzen.
Thanks. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll wait till there's a presenter too. But following up on Michael's comment about the store not wanting traffic, I'm under the impression they have a application in too to intensify their property. So if that application wants them to build something on the spot that you're claiming we have the hammer to take, sitting around this table, I don't feel good about that. They have an application and they're not saying, oh, we're gonna, it seems to me like you're siding with one guy at another and calling out a company for not coming to talk. And if somebody is in good negotiations, somebody will always come to the table, but it doesn't sound to me like maybe you guys are negotiating as fair as maybe they think, because I know I would never negotiate with somebody who wasn't willing to negotiate, and your expropriation having the hammer comment just absolutely sealed my fate or my decision that this, without that road, I could never support the subdivision without that link. So those are my thoughts right now.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Prinzen. We have negotiated in great faith, trying to come up with cost sharing. The developer can go into this more than we can, but they've proposed cost sharing in exchange of lands. We've had a meeting with them to explain everything, and they've gone away. Expropriation is always a last resort if we want that. If it's shown in a transportation master plan, then we have the right to obtain the land in some way, shape, or form. So, because it's been deemed to be required at some point. So how that becomes part of our holdings is, I guess, determined in the future. They have a rezoning right now that they've appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. They want to densify the site by putting another building on site, but it's not going to be where the lands are needed for the road. It's right in front of the existing building, so it's not an issue. But the zoning is based on trying to determine a setback when we don't know what the setback is going to be, because this is going to be a road. So what is the setback? We don't know. So we're trying to work with them on developing a site plan that incorporates where the road could go. But again, they've gone away and they don't want to talk to us anymore.
Councillor Pennell?
I was just going to say, as a councillor, I would not be in favor of the municipality expropriating land to get a roadway into a private development. I think it would be bad on our part and set a precedent that we'd all be ashamed of down the road. I think it's imperative that if someone's doing a subdivision, they're at full responsibility for how they move the traffic and at the cost of it. It should not come down to taxpayers in this county, and I would vote against come hell or high water.
Mike?
Through you, Madam Chair. Again, this is not a private development. It is a private development in terms of somebody else is developing the lands, but we will obtain roadways within that plan of subdivision. We're simply going to connect the proposed roadways through the Choice REIT property out to Loyalist Parkway or Picton Main Street, whichever one you want to pick, and create a four-legged intersection, which makes sense. We have a transportation master plan for the entire community that shows that this is a desired connection. So if it's a desired connection for the municipality, we either get the development or the roadway through development applications or through expropriation. Those are typically the only ways. Nobody's going to gift us the land. So if it's needed at some point in time, then we go through the expropriation process, and the cost would end up in some sort of development charge bylaw where we'd recoup costs associated with the expropriation of the lands through the development charge. So Mr. Cleave would charge X amount, right? We charge him X amount for his houses, his units, and part of that development charge goes towards roads, this would be a component of that.
Follow up?
Please, to be in a case like that, there's no reason why the municipality couldn't insist that if land is required to get this traffic moving because of the added traffic, that the subdivider, in an arrangement with them, should be responsible for 100% of the cost. And if that could be done, I would think it was a great idea. But for the taxpayer, every taxpayer in the county be paying for this, which they would be, I'm 100% against it.
Again, through you, Madam Chair, this is a regional approach to traffic planning. So that's why we get the land or get the connection. So you can have a development that ends up in the south end, being able to go across Picton Main Street, down the rest of George Wright Boulevard to parks or to the rest of the community or to the school that's going to be built up along Talbot Street. So it's a regional approach. Again, It's through a development charge that we'd be paying all of this. We'd be collecting back. It's not going to be totally on the taxpayer's foot or to pay the bill. It ends up through a development charge.
Yep, Councillor Roberts and then Councillor St. Jean. Cool.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question to staff is really to try and ascertain an opinion. I think all or most of us on council received an email from a respected member of the public raising a concern that for the last 100+ years, we've had something called Cold Creek Road, and that has been an appellation or a naming that is familiar with the municipality, with the post office, with emergency services. And this person raised the concern that having the development called Cold Creek Development may cause some confusion. Does staff have, especially in emergency situations, and especially since the post office and the municipality use the Cold Creek Road designation as well, any concerns from staff in that respect?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Roberts. I actually responded to this this morning. The answer is there's no concerns, given that all of the roads we named as per our street naming bylaw, so there's a list of names that would be chosen. This is simply a marketing component that a lot of times developers put the property into a name so that that's the company name, and then it's used for marketing purposes. So we're not going to have a Cold Creek Road or a Cold Creek, maybe we'll have a Cold Creek Park, but that's again up to council to make decisions on naming parks and that sort of thing. But the roadways, post office, I don't see or anticipate any issues.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Councillor St. Jean?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a bunch of questions too, but I think at this point, before anybody prejudges anything, we should actually hear from the developer. I want to hear their plan. I want to see it up on the screen. And I think at that point, I think people should be making up their minds. I have a bunch of questions with regards to the timing of the connections, but I'll save that for afterwards. I just wanted to make that statement. Can we please move along?
That was my plan. Excellent. So we're going to shut down this round of questions and move on to the applicant and agent section. The applicant also has brought in some technical experts that have also registered for 5-minute in-person comments. So just for an appreciation of everyone's time tonight, let's just put it all together. I'm going to max out the time, which would be traditionally 10 minutes for the agent, 10 minutes, and then 5 minutes each for the technical experts. So there is 3, 1 virtual. We're going to make it 1 25-minute chunk and then allow the applicant, Mr. Cleave, to then we will direct questions as council to the applicant with technical experts being directed to as need be. I just think that will be the cleanest way forward and least confusing for questions moving forward. So we will let the applicant take it away.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you. My name is David Nanton. I'm a registered professional planner with Photon Planning and Design. I'm representing the applicant for the applications of zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for the development referred to as the Cold Creek Subdivision. As mentioned, I am joined this evening by Nancy Dion of Insight Project Consulting, Gord Nielsen, ecologist and president of Bukowski Nielsen Associates, attending virtually, as well as the owner of the subject lands who will be speaking later this evening, David Cleave. And as mentioned, we'll be presenting collectively in an attempt to provide an overview of the development, how we've attempted to provide a plan that is going to achieve a good development outcome. So with that in mind, and a lot of discussion leading into this, I will get into describing the subject site, which is outlined here centrally, outlined in bold black. The site is located in the southeast of Picton, south of the Millennium Trail and which borders the northern portion of the property. The site itself is approximately 34 hectares or 84 acres and features frontage along Sandy Hook Road as well as Upper Lake Street and Heineman Road. Surrounding uses include residential to the south and east, as well as further north across the parkway. Commercial uses along the parkway itself include large format commercial, and there are rural uses in the area, including open field agriculture and some aggregate operations. The site is currently used for some open field agriculture and benefits from having close proximity to commercial uses within the downtown core. To quickly touch on the policy and regulatory framework, understanding that staff have already kind of provided some context, the county official plan designates the lands as urban center, which is where the majority of growth within the municipality is to be accommodated. Further outlined within the official plan, urban centers are to be developed in accordance with secondary plans. This brings us to the secondary plan for Picton Urban Center, which identifies the lands as town residential, which permits and supports a range of housing types and densities and supports residential intensification through compatible infill and the extension of neighborhoods. Also to note, increased density as a means to increase the mix of housing types is supported through the secondary plan. Moving to the zoning of the property in place, the site is currently zoned as future development, and this zone category is intended to permit future development through a zoning bylaw amendment. Currently, there's no EP zoning applicable to the site, which is intended to be rectified through the application submitted. So moving now to the intent of the application. So the residential plan of subdivision seeks to permit a total of 905 residential units, which will be developed through 5 phases of development. As noted through our supporting materials, the estimated build out of the development is slated to extend into and potentially beyond 2035, which, subject to necessary approvals, could begin for the first phase completed by 2027. The proposal itself seeks to permit a range and mix of residential typologies and establish defined environmental protection areas, parkland, and stormwater management blocks. The development itself is intended to support and be supported by an extension of the public street network, as discussed leading into my presentation, and will incorporate access to adjacent trail networks such as the Millennium Trail. Moving now to the planned phasing to give some context for how the development is intended to be built out. Within the first phase, as shown on this slide, it's intended to be developed with a mix of traditional townhome units, stacked townhomes, as well as back-to-back townhomes. Phase 2 is slated to feature a mix of single-detached, semi-detached, and townhome units. Phase 3, which is central to the slide ahead here, is a bit of a higher density block slated to feature stacked townhomes and apartment units. And phases 4 and 5 are slated to also feature higher density blocks in relation to the overall development, comprised entirely of stacked townhomes. It's worth noting that the density proposed through the development seeks to balance lower and higher densities in select areas to complement the existing developments located along Upper Lake Street where possible, and focuses on providing the higher density blocks internal to the site and those abutting commercial uses and the Millennium Trail. As part of the submission, a zoning bylaw application was submitted to establish 3 specific urban residential type 3 zone categories, and this would accommodate the proposed new dwelling types as well as performance standards for the individual blocks and lots. And the zoning bylaw amendment also seeks to establish a site-specific open space zone, which would restrict uses within this area to conservation and passive recreation uses only, which is different from the open space block immediately up from it in the light green, which would accommodate the stormwater management block, as well as parkland, which would connect all the way to Millennium Trail, although it may be difficult to see on this slide. There were a series of supporting studies which were completed for the applications, which I know staff alluded to, and some have been peer reviewed. These studies included a planning justification report, an environmental site assessment, an environmental impact study, geotechnical investigation, functional servicing report, noise and vibration study, stormwater management report, and a traffic impact study. In summary, we found that the proposal is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the county's official plan and the Picton Urban Center secondary plan, through resulting in a mix of residential uses in proximity to the urban core that supports active transportation, environmental protection, and increasing the local housing stock. We deemed that the application for the residential subdivision on the lands in the urban center designation represent good planning. Through working collaboratively through the application process as well as the technical review process, we'd just like to state that we confirm we agree with staff's recommendation brought forward and provided through their staff report, and that the conditions proposed through the draft plan approval would ensure that as development proceeded on a phase-by-phase basis, as has been spoken to in the roundtable, there would be opportunities for the municipality to ensure things like traffic safety over time, traffic accommodation in terms of sheer volume, safety and accesses could all be facilitated in a facilitated and well manner. With that, this concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'm now going to pass it off to Nancy Dion. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nancy Dion, and I'm the owner of Insight Project Consulting. I've been practicing as a professional civil engineer for over 25 years, including many projects in the county over the last 10 years. We were retained to assess the serviceability of the project, as well as its preliminary stormwater management requirements. And I'll walk you through our findings. This first slide illustrates that the proposed subdivision can be serviced by the existing municipal water mains at the site boundaries at Millennium Trail and at Upper Lake Street. As part of our analysis, the municipal system was modeled to confirm it is adequate for the project's domestic water demands and fire protection. Our next slide illustrates the proposed wastewater servicing for the subdivision, which can be serviced by the existing municipal sanitary system. We also modeled the municipal system to confirm that the proposed development flows can be accommodated. The eastern area of the development, which is on the bottom right area of the slide, has higher elevations, which will be able to drain by gravity sewers to the existing trunk on Millennium Trail. The remaining areas of the subdivision are lower in elevations. Servicing of these areas will require a new pumping station to be located near the center of the project. It will discharge flows to the existing sewers on Millennium Trail and Loyalist Road by way of new force mains. Connection to the Loyalist Road sewer would require permission from landowners north of Millennium Trail for a force main to be located within an easement. I would like to note that this force main could be located outside of the Choice REIT properties to the south. This slide illustrates the existing drainage condition that is relative to the project. The proposed subdivision area takes surface drainage from external lands. Of significance, the area north of Millennium Trail, which includes commercial and industrial lands, drain into the site through an existing culvert under Millennium Trail. I'd like to point out that this area includes the Choice REIT property, which is the commercial land to the north of Millennium Trail. The area fronting Upper Lake Street includes residential lands, which sheet drain to the west into our development. The proposed stormwater management considers conveyance from these external drainage lands. This slide illustrates the proposed stormwater management mitigation. As required by the county, the development is subject to providing stormwater management quality controls and quantity controls so that the post-development flows do not exceed existing flows up to the 100-year storm event. The proposed stormwater management controls were selected based on industry guidelines and regulations from conservation authorities, as well as the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, and Parks. To mitigate quality and quantity controls, a stormwater management pond is appropriate in consideration to the large size of the drainage area and the proposed urbanized subdivision design, which will include curbs and a storm sewer system. We also review the secondary plan as it relates to the Warings Creek watershed, and we've been engaging with the Warings Creek Improvement Association. In coordination with our project environmental consultant, the location and the size of the pond block considers integration of infiltration areas to promote groundwater recharge and a pond design to mitigate increased temperatures upstream of the existing wetland. The future high-density developments, including the stacks and the apartment buildings, will include open spaces to facilitate additional low-impact development methods to promote further infiltration of clean stormwater from rooftop and grassed areas. This will also enhance groundwater contribution to the Coldwater Creek. We can confirm that the future design of LIDs, the low-impact development methods, such as stone infiltration galleries, will be feasible and appropriate relative to the existing ground conditions and the future site grading. The proposed overall stormwater management strategy includes low-impact development measures to be implemented through detailed design within the pond block and the open spaces of the future condo blocks. This will ensure that the development does not impact the headwaters of Warings Creek. This concludes my engineering summary. Thank you for listening, and I'll pass you over to our environmental consultant.
Just a heads up to the team, you're at your 12-minute mark.
Yeah. Gord, can you hear us okay?
You're mic'd, or you're muted.
Your mic is muted.
You'd think I'd remember how to do that by now, but.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Gord Nielsen, and I was the author of the environmental impact study prepared for this project. The purpose of that study is to determine the environmental feasibility of residential development on these lands. And as part of determining that feasibility, it's to determine which lands require protection and buffering, together with other precautions necessary to ensure the compatibility of development with natural environment and the health of downgrading at Warings Creek. And we did that work, we visited the property on 4 separate occasions in 2022 and 2023. And in that, we captured all of the appropriate seasonal information. Can we skip forward 2 slides, please? If we could move forward 2 slides from that, please, and thank you. There we go. Thank you. Our work was completed by several different field ecologists with various expertise in botany, wildlife surveys, species at risk, wetlands, and aquatic features. Most of the subject property is in agricultural use as row crop. There is a prominent wetland in the southwest portion of the property, and in addition to that being a wetland, it's very important because it's a headwater to Waring's Creek. That wetland is primarily treed swamp with some meadow marsh. It does not contain open water, and the picture on the slide shows a typical view of that. If you could move forward to the next slide, please. There are some areas of woodland and cultural meadow which surround that wetland, and the great majority of that is within 30 meters of the wetland and will be protected by an average 30-meter plus buffer that is to be protected and enhanced around that wetland feature. There is a woodland community to the west of the subject property within the adjacent property, and that woodland abuts the wetland, and so is protected in part by that environmental protection block, as well as the park block to the north of the wetland. And there are otherwise very small areas of woodland and hedgerow within the property. If I can have the next slide, please. There is some external drainage, and that's shown on the right here, which comes into the property through culverts below Millennium Trail. But as that enters the property, it quite quickly diffuses through the agricultural lands, where it's not maintained as a drain. Instead, it just flows diffusely through the fields, and it's cultivated over. It flows towards the wetland ultimately within the property. And while that feature has been shown on some of the base mapping, including the province's base mapping as a watercourse feature, we've done considerable work to demonstrate it is not a watercourse. And Quinte Conservation Authority has reviewed our work and confirmed also that that is not a watercourse. The watercourse really begins at the downgradient end of the wetland as a headwater of Waring's Creek. We've worked with the rest of the project team to ensure that stormwater management recognizes the sensitivity of Waring's Creek and this headwater area in the wetland. This flow that comes into the property does have an important function in contributing to the health of that wetland, and that is to be maintained. There is been a considerable effort towards making sure that we're infiltrating routine flows towards that wetland, so the flow to the wetland is shallow groundwater and continue down gradient within Waring's Creek, emerging in shallow groundwater, and keeping the temperatures of Waring's Creek low, also making sure that the highest quality standards of the province are being applied to stormwater, and that we're additionally taking benefit from polishing that can occur within the buffer area around the wetland for stormwater being released. Next slide, please. Our work has been reviewed by the county's peer reviewer and Quinte Conservation, with both having provided very positive remarks. We've responded to those comments, and there will be future work that is done in satisfaction of the peer review comments, which they've asked for a detailed design to ensure that all of the detailed plans that are being developed fully comply with the recommendations of our EIS report. And next slide, please. We've also had ongoing and informative dialogue with members of the Waring's Creek Improvement Association, and we respect the role that they play in advocating for the protection of that natural system. Their concerns have included mitigation for Blanding's turtle, a species which, although it has a very low likelihood of using the subject lands, it is present within the general area and is very likely present within wetlands that include open ponded areas further to the south along Waring's Creek and along its floodplain. And it's certainly not impossible that it would also be able to utilize the subject property, because Blanding's turtle is a species which does travel quite a bit over the course of a season. But habitat opportunities for Blanding's turtle, as well as other turtle species and amphibians and other wildlife, will be protected by protecting the wetland as a part of a large environmental protection block that includes a large buffer around that wetland and includes other types of habitat, including woodland, which surround that wetland. And we've recommended some additional precautions as part of our response to the peer review, or to the peer reviewer and to Waring's Creek Group to protect any wildlife associated with the wetland during the construction period. So that concludes my comments, and I'll pass it back to others in the group. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say you are now at the 5-minute mark.
Through the chair, council, good evening. I'm David Cleave, CEO of Port Picton Homes, developer of the Coal Creek project. Coal Creek master plan consists of 905 units covering every housing type in Ontario today. We are clearly at a turning point regarding housing in Canada. We need to be more innovative in how we use our service lands and build housing that meets the needs of our community. The backbone of Coal Creek's high density, which you see on the screen, thanks, Becky. The higher density, which you see on the screen, will be delivered through stacked townhomes with underground parking. We've had great success with our back-to-back townhomes in our Talbot on the Trail project, so the stacks were the next natural step to driving housing costing down. The beauty of underground parking is it allows for maximum green space and minimizes hard surface. Our plan illustrates 24% green area coverage for the residents in the community. This large space allows for high permeability and strengthens groundwater capture and recharge. There is a large dedicated municipal park with trails throughout, along with multiple parkettes located around higher density apartment blocks for accessibility. All this allows for greater pedestrian flow through to the Millennium Trail. On the advice of planning staff, we forward face the builds to be more Millennium Trail friendly, incorporating the trail into the community. Coal Creek's first phase will begin within new blocks created around Heineman Street and Upper Lake Street. 5 properties were acquired and assembled in order to give northeastern access off Lake Street. We will expand Heineman into an 18-meter wide municipal street, which will ultimately be the east-west corridor. We begin our build-out on Heineman heading west for a total of 181 units, phase 1. Servicing of phase 1 begins this fall with your approval tonight. We expect this to be a 2 to 3 year period of completion. Phase 1 consists of a full mix of townhome offerings, from tiny homes of 660 square feet to 880 square feet, traditional front-load towns of 1,700 square feet, back-to-back towns of 1,400 square feet, and our first 2 blocks of stacked townhomes, 800 square feet to 1,600 square feet. Coal Creek's 80 acres could not be in a better location for higher density housing for our growing community. Although we are sensitive to our neighbors affected by proximity, overall, density here doesn't affect the town at large. It is the perfect location for 3 to 4 story stacked townhomes and the surrounding services at George Wright Boulevard and Loyalist Parkway. As the community grows, and with the recommendation from the Master Transportation Study, we will incorporate best practices for traffic flow and control in the community. Coal Creek will be the first low-impact development community in Prince Edward County, aligning with the county's goals of carbon reduction. We are committed to green infrastructure, moving away from gas heating and moving into high-efficiency electric heat pumps throughout the community. We are in discussions for bringing specific blocks into geothermal and cooling where we can be most cost effective using this technology. Solar will be installed on the apartment block rooftops along with green roofs where possible, aligning with good environmental practices. Good news regarding trees, although we have a few on the property which need to come out of the George Wright Boulevard extension. At Sandy Hook, we will double our tree planting, and this additional greening will improve the site where there was absolutely no tree cover before. As you have heard from our consultants speaking on stormwater management, environmental concerns, we are very pleased to have worked closely with the Waring Creek Association municipality to create what I believe is a win-win, where the EP areas are protected while allowing the community to thrive around it. We have made a commitment to the WCA to participate in a program for the protection of the Blanding turtle on Sandy Hook Road. It is our intent to create sustainable development that meets the needs of the present without compromising future generations. I would like to voice my appreciation to municipal senior staff, Matt Coffey and Rob McDonald. We set this meeting date 12 months ago, met bi-weekly in a collaborative effort to bring forward this plan this evening. It takes a huge amount of effort and focus to hit critical dates to get draft plans ready. I say to you both many thanks. But also, last but not least, to our team who have been instrumental in helping create this master plan of Quail Creek, Dave Natton, Holly Newitt, Nancy Dion, Gord Nielsen. It's a pleasure working with you every day. My many thanks. I would like to take the last few minutes to talk about what is not understood about our industry.
I would just like to say you've surpassed your time now. Do you have a couple sentences for final?
I can move them into questions if that.
Or can we have a motion to extend the last little bit? Okay, let's extend. Okay, so Councillor Hirsch, Councillor St. Jean, all in favor? Cool, that passes.
Thank you, through the chair. I want to represent this evening that that this is probably the most complicated business in our country. It is the most highly regulated industry. And we see that tonight where, you know, in developments where council is directing us as developers, we're trying to take cues from the horseshoe to be able to say that affordable housing, attainable housing, we're watching, we're listening. Good developers do listen to everything. I watch your council meetings on other developments. If I'm not here, I'm watching them online. Please understand that there was a council that okayed the no-frills development and did not take the land. They did not extend the entrance off Loyalist Parkway. They let them keep their entrance. Everybody thinks that it looks like a private or a public access, but it is private. I'll also say that I was the first one that stepped out to Choice REIT and brought forward a cost-sharing plan that Nancy Dion and I put together and put in front of them. And I want Councillor Prinzen to understand that we have pushed and pushed and pushed, and all we get back from them is we want our plan approved for our expansion of no frills, but we really don't care what you're doing on the other side. This has been exhaustive for us, as said at this meeting, and please understand that we do not control the limits of what their private property is. We're glad to meet at the table, bring the money to the table, as Councillor Pennell said. It's not an issue. We will be there. We will be front and center. I would be glad for you guys to be in that conversation. But I'm telling you that when I stepped up and brought this project forward, there was no need for me as a developer to connect to George Wright Boulevard. We would like it, but we don't need it. We have our entrances, and we have planned our first phase and our second phase and future phases to be independent from coming over the Millennium Trail. So when I hear deferral tonight, it is with respect that I want everyone to understand that we have tried very, very hard, along with the planning manager and planning senior staff, to make this work. I believe it will work. I believe we will get there. But to defer this project of where we're being told bring affordable housing and attainable housing, we've done it. We've brought it. It's right there, right in front of you. If you don't want that much density, we'll pull it back. I'm okay. Just tell me. We're looking for direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start our round of questions from councillors. Councillor Hirsch, I see you're jumping up there. Councillor Pennell, you're in the wings.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dave, and all your colleagues for laying this out for us. I was at the July 30th presentation as well and saw that picture. There's a lot to like with this proposed subdivision, especially the green space that's created by doing underground parking, which is a novel thing, I think, for the county. But let's address the affordability question. I know you did that July 30th, and especially for Councillor Pennell's benefit, could you suggest what you think pricing is going to look like?
Sure. And I'll say again, and I spoke a bit of this in the Wellington meeting, is that it's an understanding, I think, in the market that somehow developers make pricing. We don't make pricing. We follow resale. That's all it is. It's as simple as it is. We can't sell something. If you look at Talbot on the Trail, and we were to look at a townhouse that's selling for $500,000, we're not going to try to sell something at $525,000. We're going to try to sell something at $480,000. It's the market that sets that pricing. And we are okay to be affordable, attainable, and find our market. But the market is a market, and I think it was said earlier. We are looking for this product right now as we margin our building costs today in our tiny homes, which there's only, I think, 8 coming in on Heinemann, but we will be in the high 2s, 290, 295 in that product. Our stacked townhouses, the whole mission here in stacked townhouses is to be able to bring that product at higher density in around the 380, 390 market. But I'll tell you, that is only me at this point looking at our building costs. If the market moves on that product to 480, we're not selling for 390. I mean, that's not a business. That is not how this program works. This will be the first stacked townhouses that will be built if approved. And we will look at that margin product to bring those first townhouses in our first phase. We have, I think, around 30 units that we're going to look at and see how they meet the market, how the market likes it. And again, every one of those blocks that you see there is an independent block. We go through site plan approval for those independent blocks. When we get there in 3 or 4 years from now and the market moves, we may have to say the market doesn't want stacked townhouses anymore. It only wants back-to-back townhouses. But the back-to-back townhouses are more expensive than stacked townhouses. So when you're given direction at this horseshoe for a developer to bring attainable housing, you have to appreciate this is where we have to go. It is the only way we get there, right? It's not that I want to build 3 or 4 story stacked townhouses. They're tough to build with underground parking garages. But if we're going to be there as a community and we're going to find our way to the best pricing, Councillor Pennell, the best pricing in the market, that's the product. That's why you have to support that tonight, because that's the only way we get there.
Councillor Pennell.
I certainly like the idea of You're talking lots of trees, underground parking, heat pumps, which all adds to being affordable, not only today, but in the future. But what I do want to know, because we're looking at the possibility of bringing water from Wellington and that, but having said that, that hasn't happened as this point. How many phases could you put on right now and have been assured by the municipality the water is there now to build? How many phases can you build?
Through the chair, excuse me, through the chair. We understand as developers that we are only an allocation for the draft plan that is in front and our subdivision agreement for those phases that are forward. The reason we are aggressive always as a company is that we're chasing timelines. And if we have 1,000 units in Picton, we want to be at the front of the line. I mean, that is where we're at right now in Picton. We do not want to see a moratorium on servicing. At this point, we're 3 or 4 years out. First phase, 181 units. We feel very comfortable at this point that we will find our way in 3 or 4 years as council and the next council to you, that we will get there, that we will find that servicing, we will work through it. And in that second phase, we'll have to deal with that time when the time comes. Hopefully there will be allocation there for us, but I'm sure there will be a new story to be written.
You haven't really answered my question. You're starting out right now on a subdivision. I'm impressed with some of the ideas into it. But you must have in the back of your mind right now, if that water didn't go through immediately, how many houses can I build? If it does go through, what time factor are we looking at before you complete that? And I find with all the developers, and I know you got to sell the house first, but we've got to have some sort of plan as we move forward. I'm going to need this, anticipate it. Now, I'm going to need that. Or you haven't got enough. I can get phase 1 done, but I can't go into phase 2 because the county's already informed me of that. There's not going to be. That's the type of question I would like to know as we move forward.
Yes, and through the chair. Great question. And sorry for my first answer. I understand now. We are absolutely positive on 181 units of where we are in the lineup, and we are going to start, if we're approved this evening, into construction this fall while it's still dry. We will work through 181 units. The answer is crystal ball a little bit because we don't know who else will come through with their draft plans after our 181 units. If we were to say only have 1,000 units and 5 other developers came and ate that 1,000 units up, when we get to the second phase, then I guess we better have a plan as a council of how we're going to get that second phase serviced. At this point, we're very comfortable on the 181 units we have in the first phase for the first 2 to 3 to 4 years. Again, market driven, we hope it goes quicker than not.
Through the chair, I'm Robert McDonald, the development engineer for the county. I would just like to elaborate on what David just said. The municipality doesn't allocate things until a subdivision agreement's in place. So if we did get a bunch of other developers come in place and they had subdivision agreements, that's who gets the allocation first. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor McNaughton's up next, and then Councillor Prinson.
Thanks very much. I have I would like to start out, thank you, David, for some of the very beautiful features that you've included in this design, including some of the more progressive design elements like lids and inclusion of heating and cooling that is not locked into fossil fuel delivery, and potentially energy generation on roofs. So those are all quite good features. And I think the setbacks, from what I can tell from the more sensitive areas, look very attractive. So I did want to say that. I do have a couple of questions for others on your team. I would start with Gord if he's still available. Because I did have a question about the stormwater flow from from Loyalist Parkway, and his comments regarding that discharge being important, and just understanding a little bit better how that can be accommodated.
Through the chair, Gord, can you hear us? It looks like you're muted and your video's off. Councillor McNaughton just directed a question at you.
I can, and I think I only heard the last part of the question, but
okay.
With regards to the importance of the discharge to the wetland in Waring's Creek, correct?
Yeah, so I was interested in your comments because, as I understood it, the No Frills property has a stormwater pond right next to their building, and yet there's still discharge coming through culverts under the Millennium Trail. Is it behind No Frills, or is it further down a little bit? And your comments regarding the importance of those of that flow to be maintained onto the property so that it can filter through to the wetlands eventually. Can you just elaborate that just on that just a little bit for my understanding as we go forward with looking at the stormwater plan for this?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair. So the tributary comes in about, close to the west end of the property. Close to the east end of the property at Millennium Trail. And yes, I think it's generally behind the No Frills. It comes in, it's culverted stormwater or culverted flow that comes from up-gradient development that comes onto the property. But it then flows diffusely through the property. So what doesn't sort of get lost to evaporation from that flow is ultimately part of the flow which serves the wetland. And one of the things that's important to flow that's flowing sort of diffusely like that is it takes some time to get to the wetland. So after a rainfall, it's not all getting there immediately. And so part of the stormwater solution is to mimic those types of things. That includes taking that external drainage, as occurs right now, and taking the internal drainage to the property, recharging some of those flows within the property through some low-impact development techniques that will be used where some of that flow can be infiltrated in yard areas and in the larger townhouse blocks, et cetera, where there's larger open space areas. And then taking it to a stormwater treatment facility where it's treated, it's held to provide that attenuation within the stormwater facility. And then those routine flows are released into an infiltration facility where it then infiltrates into the ground and continues to move towards the wetland and through the down gradient floodplain of the creek. So all of that is intended to keep that flow going where it's going right now, to keep it clean, to make sure that we're not getting high spring runoff as we might right now that comes across the fields and brings turbidity down into the wetlands. So to clean all those flows first, and to keep the temperatures of those flows low. So again, I think right from the beginning of this process, we've recognized the headwaters of Waring's Creek are vital importance, and we need to be doing everything we can as part of stormwater solutions on this property to protect that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's where I was going with that question is, do you find that what's outlined is fully adequate to maintain those temperatures at the desirable level and be able to feed that system appropriately at the correct level, at the correct temperature?
Through you, Madam Chair, through the preliminary design, which is the sort of appropriate design stage at this stage, yes, I'm confident that we're doing all the right things as part of this subdivision to achieve that.
Thank you.
As we move forward in the detailed design, of course, there'll be a lot of additional work to make sure that's occurring through the detailed design process.
Thanks so much for that clarification. I appreciate that. And Madam Chair, I do have I do have more questions, but if you would prefer, I can hold off until other people have had their chance.
Yeah, we'll hold off for second round. I'll
Yep.
put you on the list. Councillor
Thank you.
Frenson, then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Dave, you made a comment that it was the council's error before us that gave no frills their land without an access. Would that be the same council that zoned this land for future development that you are now developing? Because if I was sitting around the table as a councillor and this land was coming up for future development, I definitely wouldn't be supporting it. So I'd be careful knocking one hand when you're feeding from the other. So I just want to say that. And my next question is, you have a strip going from on the west side of the property, open space up to the Millennium Trail. Can you tell me how wide that strip is beside lot 21?
15 meters.
Okay, and so that's 50 feet. On the other side, as you're well aware, there is a resident that you are putting the main road 5 meters from the property line, correct?
That would be on the east side.
That would be on the east side. The resident that you've talked to at 96, it's mentioned in here, you're putting water. And I know this development's good, and I agree with you. Much I don't appreciate you name dropping me and calling me out on stuff, which is fine. I do appreciate your development. I know it's going to happen. But I think it has to happen properly, and I think all your ducks have to be in a row before it does happen. So those are where we might not agree on things. But anyways, going back to that main road beside the resident at 96, where you have to clear a land to make it, and now we're going back to another council that allowed this house to build close to the property line, so maybe we're getting into another discussion, but we won't go there. But would there be any willingness to move 5 meters and make that right away up to the Millennium Trail 10 meters instead of 15, or split the difference or anything like that? Because you know the property I'm referring to that drops off. There's a nice row of trees. If you only give them the 5 meters from the property line, I mean, you're cleaning all the trees, and that's where condition 23 talked about we'll save whatever trees we could. Well, trees you can and trees you do in any development are total different things. So would there be any willingness to move, and it doesn't, like it sounds like a lot, but it's really not, but shift everything 2 meters, 3 meters, 5 meters to the west?
Through the chair.
If you don't have your road through to Loyalist Parkway yet anyways?
Right. So when we lay down subdivisions, it takes a great deal of time to get the sizing. So we have standard setbacks front and rear yard, and as we move across from our traffic circle or George Wright Boulevard to the Sensenstein property of the trailer, specifically to Steve's property, it's a small piece that is there that, you're right, in 5 meters. We see this on a lot of our density where we are getting tighter in our rear yards. And in his particular case, he has a small stretch that when we met with him Councillor Nyman, myself, and Matt. We talked about treeing that area through where his trailers were. It gives us, I believe it's 5 meters on that. So the element there is that if we were to shift, we would be shifting, into our roads, our road widths, our front and rear setbacks, right across to the traffic circle of George Wright Boulevard. We have a boundary, we have a property line, we have the first set of townhouses that if we had the drawing up, we could see it, Becky, maybe.
I'm looking at it on my screen. That's kind of why I'm following along. And
we may not see it here. It may be on one of the other slides, Councillor Prinzen, but I hear what you're saying. I think that all I can say is there's a lot of work that has gone into this plan. And so when we look at those, we only get so much distance from one point to the other. I see what you're saying is, can George Wright Boulevard shift? George Wright Boulevard probably could shift, but as if and when the time comes to do that connection on the Millennium Trail into the No Frills property, it is, we're tight on the hydro plant. And so those radiuses, they've spent a lot of time, Nancy spent a lot of time bringing those in to where they have to be and how they're going to sit down. And then we work from there over to Mr. Sinsenstein's property. And then it's just a matter of math from there.
okay, and one further follow-up if I may. And you say now, the comment was made earlier, you have all the access you need, so it doesn't really matter even if you get that access. So then if you don't get the access, you could shift. Is that what I'm hearing? Because the reason you just mentioned is because of the turns and stuff like that. So
yes.
So
yes, the answer is yes to that. Is that if we weren't constrained by going across the Millennium Trail, then we could shift. Yes. And I'm not saying that there isn't a shift there, and we're still in draft plan. We can look at it, and if there's the ability to shift now.
Like Dave is explaining, it's the constraint between the existing property and the wetland as well. So we've, like the combination of the lots and the roads are at the smallest possible to make that fit so that we can have the largest wetland buffer. So you're talking about just north of Sandy Hook, correct?
we're talking 96 Sandy Hook. The house on the sand that's gonna, so if we don't shift, and I maybe missed it in the conditions, but if there was any damage to a foundation, because you've already agreed to water and sewer to that property.
Sorry, Councillor, through you.
We're talking 96 Sandy.
Yes, okay. I thought we were down at Sinsenstein's property. There was another boundary tree. Right, okay. Let me come back to that, yes. So the Walmsley property, yes. So Nancy's correct in that we only have so much to our 30-meter boundary to the wetland. So if we shove, we really have no distance to shove is the quick answer to the west from their property. But their property does meld, into that bank without a lot of retention. It's pretty natural coming in from their lot line. We are putting water sewer onto their property. We are doing a hydro-G study on that to make sure there's no effect, but our servicing is very shallow on that end. There certainly won't be any effect to their well and to their septic as it sits today.
Okay, I'm thinking more foundation, house issues.
Absolutely not.
And you would put a condition,
Sure, I think we have a condition already.
I was looking for one, I couldn't find it. I saw the other one, 23 and stuff like that, but I'm just, okay.
Yes, we could do a foundation inspection for sure.
Cool. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dave, I think at some point it would be interesting to have a good discussion with our county developers about what is the role of the private sector in creating affordable housing. I agree with you, it's complex and you need certain margins, and we have an affordable housing corporation, and how does that partnership work with private developers? But maybe we'll save that for another time. And I acknowledge that you've got a lot going on, and it's important what you've got going on, so thank you for that. And I acknowledge that you acknowledge staff. I personally appreciate that. And the innovation that you've brought to this project regarding the environment and the collaboration and listening to people, stakeholders, including councillors, is, I think, impressive. You talked in your opening remarks about meeting the needs of our community in terms of housing, and you interchangeably use affordable and attainable. When I look at what CMHC says the average household income is in the county, somewhere around $107,000 before taxes. But if you look at the median household income in the county before taxes, it's around $82,000. And then CMHC, there's a lot of debate about how do you define affordable housing, but using the CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation definition of affordable housing, it's not to exceed 30% of the gross annual income for low and moderate income households. And I know this is, you can't be precise about this, but maybe just a guesstimate on your part to help us reach a decision. What percentage of the 905 units, whatever that number is, do you think would qualify using the median gross income of $82,000 as affordable under the CMHC definition?
Thank you, through you, Chair. So what I can tell you today is that we have approximately 450 stacked townhouses in this project, more close to 50%. Today, if they were built, I think that we would see good 20% of those units, 20 to 30% on ground level, smaller units, come in the mid to high 300s. Now, 30% on 60th percentile of CMHC brings us in around, I think, 3.25. If I remember the stat on that, somewhere in that number. So it's going to be pretty tough going forward in Canada to meet any of that requirement, honestly. Which is sad, but you know, it's a number. It's a stated number now that CMHC is laid down. We as a corporation for 40 years have had the largest, and still to date, the largest affordable rental sales program of any company in Prince Edward County. We are still selling houses in the $300,000 range in Macaulay Village. Our units on Main Street at rental units are still well below, and have been for all those years, in our rental stock. But it's complicated, as you have said, Councillor Roberts. You know, the price of everything continues to move, right? Our taxes on buildings and maintenance. These buildings are tougher and tougher to maintain to keep affordability moving in the right direction. I think to answer your question, that's probably, you know, where I see the stacked development. We're still 3 or 4 years out on those phases by the time we get there, after our first phase. But, you know, the hope is that we, more supply comes on, more supply should drive prices down, and I recognize that 100%, that we will find competition, more housing that we have approved, and more people building in not just our market, but any market, of course, that will drive more pricing down. Now, we don't know what the demand is. Demand's always what's going to drive pricing, and that's still to be determined how that's going to look in Prince Edward County going forward.
I don't want to put you on the spot, and you can say, you know, you can find a way of answering me without being precise if you want to, and I understand that. But does what you just said boil down to 20% if we're lucky?
Yeah, I think because in the stacked townhouses, it's the bottom units, the ground floor units that are going to be the most affordable units, right? And so when we talk about attainable, and we talk about that number of 325 or 350, if that's a real number, then, you know, it's going to be complicated to get there. But the best chance we have is by those units.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Councillor Cross was left. Councillor St. Jean, we're in the first round. Do you want to throw a question out? And if no worries if you don't. Cool. Take the mic.
He's not left. He just left the room for a drink.
Well, you missed this chance. Like,
No, I was thinking more about your quorum, Madam Chair. Okay. Good to go? Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. You heard earlier some of the discussion or questions for staff with regards to access points to the property. And I know there's some contention around the George Wright Boulevard thing. And there's just so that everybody's good, there's a lot of history there that I was a part of, that I'm more than happy to talk about afterwards with regards to the OMB appeal and all that stuff there. So, but that's in the past. It looks like it might affect us now. So with regards to those other to the potential for 3 connections, Heineman Street, Sandy Hook, and hopefully eventually George Wright Boulevard, what's the timing do you see that would require those connections? You know, I know you're looking at Heineman Street as number 1, the connection to Sandy Hook, and then I'm going to assume that the George Wright Boulevard is the 3rd connection. Any idea the timing of those, when they would be required?
Madam Chair, in understanding that George Wright Boulevard was going to take some time, we acquired 5 properties to bring Heineman in. That was the mission statement that we made very early on to understand that probably in a big corporation, it wasn't going to happen overnight. And so Heineman became a reality from the east side to enter. That gives us a 3-year runway for 181 units. Depending on market, could be 4 years. The answer to that is that at the end of 4 years, we would expect to have a deal worked out on George Wright Boulevard, phase 2 ready to go, and punch it through to Sandy Hook so that we have a new corridor established.
Good. Can I have a second question? Go ahead. Okay. So I'm going to go to the, you mentioned 660 square foot to 880 square foot residential units.
Yes.
Some of those are intended to be in the first phase?
Yes.
Okay. And so my math, that's 425 a square foot, the number that you quoted? Yeah, okay. that's actually, and this is just a comment, that's actually extremely reasonable, given the marketplace here in Prince Edward County. Whether or not it achieves the attainable level that we're all striving for, or the other one, the affordable, which in my mind is pretty much out the window anymore, given market conditions, cost of land, all the work that everybody has to go through to actually develop something, and then the materials and labor. The reality is, in this world and this county, that if you can get a house for 400,000, you're doing damn good, because you cannot build anything for less than that. That is the reality, unless you start doing a lot of these more dense developments. I think that's great. Not really a question. I would like to say that I am super impressed that this is the first development to incorporate so many new and novel things. We have never seen any developer come forward with green roofs. We've never seen a developer come forward with basically telling Enbridge Gas to go away. There's been some solar talked about, but this is the first one that I think is certainly going to go that way. And the heat pumps. And most importantly, low impact design on the engineering for all of the infrastructure. I have to say, this is novel, it's new, and it's the direction we have to go in if we're going to have not only affordable and attainable housing, but sustainable and environmentally friendly housing. So I know I could have saved those comments for the vote, but I just need to say that right now. And I just want to thank you for being progressive in builds. And I hope this will encourage other developers, some who we've already approved and others that we know are going to be coming, to do just this. Just take this as the model for the future, because it truly is. Anyways, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Councillor St. Jean. Councillor Grosso, any questions for the first round, or are you good to go? Okay, thanks. Then it's my turn. Block 10, specifically the roadway that cuts block 10 and block 8. Yeah, 10 and 8. There's a roadway that meets the end. It expands just, I don't know. In this drawing, it looks like a few feet, but I'm sure it's a little bit more. I'm curious if that is specifically why the extension of the road is there. Is it a turnaround spot for fire trucks? It seems to be cutting up a little bit of that green space buffer there, and I'm just curious on why.
Through you, Madam Chair. So these are rear laneways, and these were to the satisfaction of municipality to be able to not have driveways on the main corridor of George Wright Boulevard. So we come in with rear laneways to pick up rear garage and rear driveway on those particular units.
My statement wasn't clear enough, I guess. So let's re-ask the question. It's specifically at the intersection of block 10 and block 8 at the four-way. If you continue downwards towards the water of the mine property, there's a slight extension of the road. I'm just curious why.
Matt, do you want to answer that? You see the extension. I think it was for future. It was
through the chair that would be for a future connection.
I'm gonna give myself a little extra time and also ask specifically the section of the Millennium Trail around block 2, 3, and 4 where the roadway meets up towards the trail. What's the plan to mediate any damage to the trail, keeping it green? We've heard from constituents in the past an appreciation to the trail is keeping it a little wild. What is the plan with having the roadway so close to it, and also pedestrian protection?
Matt, I don't know if you want to share that response and I'll finish on it.
Through the chair, I mean, one of the draft plan conditions is that we have a landscape plan. And then we're also there are some cross sections for the different streets that are proposed here, but I don't believe there's one specifically that ties in the Millennium Trail. So that might be something that we'll ask for at the detailed design phase. But I anticipate there'll be some buffering requirements and some landscaping that would delineate between the trail and the street, bearing in mind that there is going to be quite a bit more pedestrian access to the trail from that location, because that is the intent, to have the street as a window so that it is easily accessible. So there will be some landscaping, but there'll also be more opportunities for pedestrian access to the trail.
Yes, I understand wanting to have pedestrian access. I see there's a great chance for pedestrian access specifically at Road E, where it could connect a little bit more to the trail, or near Road D, not Road D, Road E. I guess my concern is just how do we have connectivity, but also balance what is the beauty of the Millennium Trail now, which is having that buffered space, and also that you have 2 roadway connections, and you also have children on bikes going down the Millennium Trail. I understand like nothing is perfect, but just to have a proper spacing, for me, proper green space buffer, that would be something I'd like to see just in the plan, with clear lines of connectivity, that it's just not no man's land. And
if I could, through the chair, we would be happy to look at that in a landscape plan and have that in our draft plan. We want the Millennium Trail. Obviously, it's a huge asset to the development. We don't want to ignore it.
Perfect. That's all my main concern is. Councillor Pennell, we are going into round 2. Councillor McNaughton already has first dibs on second round questions, but I'll put your name down. Councillor McNaughton. Oh, that's good. Okay. Councillor McNaughton, then Councillor Pennell.
Thank you. Just having only just very briefly and quickly today read the environmental assessments, there are several concerns on the property. And some of them are pollutants and contaminants that are coming from neighboring properties. I'm just wondering how you plan to ensure that, and I'm sure you'll be amending, that your phase 3 and any amelioration that's done, I'm sure on your own property, will be done rigorously. But I'm just wondering how you will prevent, there are still, I'm thinking about one of the locations on Upper Lake Street that I believe is currently having some investigation of a significant multi-year dump site that has additional oils, lubricants, and pollutants on that site. I'm just wondering if how you plan to prevent continued contamination of the strip along some of the troubling areas to protect the people who purchase in those areas.
Through you, Madam Chair. So my answer to you, Councillor McNaughton, is that I believe you're talking about the Ready Mix Company. There is a dell between our elevation of probably 60 feet in elevation. We don't have wells on our site, so I don't see any cross-contamination from Upper Lake Street over to our property.
However, there were contaminants, I think, identified abutting that property, were there not? I
No.
really had very little time with the EAs. There were not?
No.
So those homeowners will definitely be very, very safe going forward.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, I just had one question for you. Was there any discussion at all about putting sidewalks in versus not? Quinte West and many of the newer subdivisions are going a straight pave. They paint a line around. snowplows plow it, not only we gotta protect, to try to get affordable housing, but we gotta make it affordable in the future. Was any discussion made with you at all that it might be one way of cutting down the cost, creating the same thing, but at a lot less expense to try to keep up in the wintertime, because we have to buy new plows and everything else for sidewalks. And was any discussion ever made with you at all on that?
Through the chair. I would be glad for you to advocate on my point of view of less sidewalks would be good. At this point, we engineered, and Nancy can speak clear to this, but we engineered 2 municipal standards. And, what I can say to you is that when I watch our developments, the people in our developments use the sidewalks, especially on the main arterial roads, specifically George Wright Boulevard. And there's lots of kids, there's lots of traffic, but I would like to see less sidewalks for sure on secondary streets for sure.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Would that not help bring the cost down on subdivisions?
Yes.
And maybe somewhere along the line, I'd like to see it tried in one.
Quickly, through you, Madam Chair. The Development Services Department will be bringing forward engineering standards in not too short of time, whether a few months maybe, or early in the new year. There will be road cross-sections in that package of material, and then council can have a debate over whether or not sidewalks are a good thing for local roads, or whether we should only have one on an arterial road or on a secondary road, like a collector road of some sort, or whether we should have MUPs or not MUPs. I mean, these are all conversations that you as council will debate and then provide direction to staff.
Good, it hasn't happened yet, so I rest assured that you will bring it up on council's behalf. That it's a good idea to look at.
Okay, I'm gonna do last call for questions. I'm seeing none. I don't see, is Councillor McNaughton still there? Yep. No, you're good? Okay, well, thank you for answering our questions. We're going to take a short break because we are at the 2 hour and 14-minute mark. And then we're going to move on to questions from the public. There is five pre-registered, so we'll go right into those right after this break. Thanks. Oh, it'll be 10 minutes as normal? Yeah, 10? 10. Okay, cool. See you back at 9:24.
just.
My mic was not on for that, so hopefully I don't need to repeat myself.
Heard you.
Perfect.
If you can hear me, I'm a quiet talker. So, although Dr. Rice is not here this evening, he worked on this deputation with me, so I just want to put that forward. Members of Council, I'm Cheryl O'Brien, speaking on behalf of the Waring Creek Improvement Association regarding the Coal Creek proposal. There was a meeting very recently with Dr. Rice of our association and Jim Bowlby, our stream biologist, as well as county planning and Coal Creek developers discussing mainly the stormwater management plan. Although the proposal meets the standard and is better than average, we would like to ensure that the wet-dry pond system that Mr. Bowlby proposed is used as a minimum so that the size and scope of the wet pond can be reduced. We still caution Council as to the liability of wet ponds and refer you to the multiple links we have provided to planning regarding children drowning in wet ponds. Evaporation is, of course, always an issue. Additionally, we are requesting the following be implemented. First, the county needs to develop immediate protective policies for the woods in the headwaters. This is essential for the creek, watershed, and species at risk. No walking paths, picnic areas, or tree cutting, any of which could alter the natural state of the recharge-discharge area. This is a high-functioning part of a unique water system. It needs a do-nothing approach. Your official plan, page 24, item 15 and 16 states, the Waring Creek sub-watershed is a connected ecosystem that includes multiple features and ecological functions. No development shall occur within the riparian area extending a minimum of 50 meters out from the top bank of the creek and any other tributaries and any additional wetlands or other features providing groundwater discharge to the creek and its tributaries, end quote. We would advise Council to review the other references in the OP regarding natural heritage system policies and significant groundwater recharge areas included at the bottom of this deputation I'll hand in. The Warings Creek is a cold water stream and fish habitat subject to protections both federally and provincially. The proposal must demonstrate there will be no negative impacts downstream from the development. In spite of the developer's ecological assessment, that there are no blandings, or until tonight, that there are no blandings and the terrain is not optimal, our evidence shows blandings are using this habitat and in effect being killed crossing the road. Blanding turtles have been reported to iNaturalist since 2020 with documentation dating back to 2017. Because the woods provide habitat to a species at risk, they are subject to designated protections and subsequent cutbacks, also in the official plan, page 26. Therefore, we are asking Council for a 50-meter setback instead of 30, which addresses some of the concerns of both the headwaters and species at risk. Building in this area will have an impact. There is no example in all of Prince Edward that is as fraught with potential negatives as this land use designation for development. Efforts by the developer to reduce the developmental footprint, either by stacking of units or unit reduction, allowing more land surface for filtration back to the water table, are laudable. But still, it needs to be maximized from the current proposal. And we would like to recommend less density. Roadways, driveways, etc., should be a permeable material, allowing surface water back to the water table, which will help sustain the headwaters. The protections are already in the official plan and need to be met. We have provided a few suggestions as to how that can occur. We have worked with the county in the past, and our knowledge should give the WCIA agency in future discussions with the county and the developers. Thank you. And I have a lovely neighbor on Sandy Hook who compiled 2 of these photos of the blandings and the dates and times, and I'm going to give one to the developers, give one to council. And that's all I have. That's all I got.
Perfect, right under the wire. Any questions from council? I'm seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Prinzen. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, did you say you had no conversations, developing and planning staff, before you saw this? Or was it minimal?
Dr. Rice and our stream biologist had a meeting.
Okay.
Planning, a member of planning and the developer. But
And did, at that point, did they say that they would request the 50 meters as per our official plan?
the developer?
No, did Dr. Rice and your,
It was more of an information meeting is my
this is what we're
takeaway.
planning, okay.
And the stormwater management was really what Dr. Rice and Mr. Bowlby were fairly concerned about, and they did raise the Blandings turtles.
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Sajin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Cheryl. Just for clarity, you mentioned increasing the buffer zone from 30 to 50. That's not what's in the official plan. 50 meters is not in the official plan. 30 meters is, correct?
30 meters is standard, but 50 meters, it's in black and white in your official plan. And yeah, find it for you shortly, but in the official plan, I know it's in there. I read it today. I will find it for you. I promise.
I think staff are trying to find that
Yeah,
for you.
no, I just read it today, and I'm sorry.
That's the first time I've ever heard of 50-meter setback, because we're always
You're always going for the 30.
always
and
going
I
with
know
30.
that, and I know
But
that.
I do understand the sensitivity of the area.
Yeah, no,
I
no,
absolutely
no.
do.
But I mean, the other thing, it did come up, but we're also asking for a 50-meter setback because, oh, here it is, right here. Official plan, page 24, items 15 and 16 states, the Warings Creek sub-watershed is a connected ecosystem that includes multiple features and ecological functions. No development shall occur within the riparian area extending a minimum of 50 meters out from the top bank of the creek, any tributaries and any additional wetlands or other features providing groundwater discharge to the Waring Creek and its tributaries.
That's off our official plan.
That's it.
Thank you.
I lifted it right off the internet.
So through the chair, the actual creek itself is not within 50 meters of this development. There is a setback from the woodland area, but the actual creek itself is beyond the 30-meter setback.
But this isn't talking about the creek. It's talking about all of it. Any tributaries, additional wetlands, or other features providing groundwater discharge to the creek. And its that area certainly accommodates that description.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I see no more questions. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. Next up is Paul Appeal. from Prince Edward County Field Naturalists. Hello and welcome, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Paula Peel, and I'm a member of the Prince Edward County Field Naturalists. Pecton appreciates this opportunity to share its concern that Blanding's turtles have not been adequately accounted for in the developer's plans for the Coal Creek subdivision. The Blanding's turtle is listed as threatened under the Species at Risk Act and needs special protection for this reason. The environmental impact study confirms that 11% of the subject lands are wetland and that the Blanding's turtles spend the majority of their life cycle in the aquatic environment. Nevertheless, the impact study concludes there is no potential habitat for Blanding's turtles present on the site. What sense can be made of this when the Loyalist Heights EIS confirms that suitable habitat for Blanding's turtles is found in the same wetland? According to the developer, this wetland does not contain any areas of open water that we deem to have potential to be used as either a seasonal stopover area or as overwintering habitat for the species. This is enough to stop us in our tracks. It is well documented that suitable wetlands for Blanding's turtles typically have slow-moving or standing water less than 6.5 feet deep with abundant aquatic and emergent vegetation. Suitable wetlands include shrub and scrub swamps, meadow marshes, vernal pools, and bogs. Wetlands with open water are also suitable Blanding's turtle habitat, although marshes, ponds, and shrub swamps are favored. The important point is that the types of wetlands these turtles inhabit vary considerably, and the presence of open water is certainly not a make or break factor in determining suitable wetland habitat for Blanding's turtles. The developer, I'll just catch my breath here. The developer concludes that there is no reason why Blanding's turtles would move into or through the subject land, as habitat opportunities are very limited on these lands. We would point out in response that Blanding's turtles have been found using all wetland types in their home range and that they utilize multiple wetlands within a year. In one study, Blanding's turtles used an average of 6.5 different wetlands per year. In our opinion, there's no reason why Blanding's turtles would not move into or through the subject lands. It is helpful to compare the EIS, the environmental impact studies, for Coal Creek and Loyalist Heights. The Loyalist Heights EIS confirms a high probability of the occurrence of Blanding's turtles. The EIS for Loyalist Heights also notes that Blanding's turtles have been documented in the wetlands surrounding Warings Creek and that these turtles move from the provincially significant wetlands south of Sandy Hook to the wetland in and adjacent to the property. The Loyalist Heights EIS, Environmental Impact Study, confirms the potential for direct and indirect impacts to Blanding's turtles during construction. In contrast, the Coal Creek EIS concludes there will be no impact on Blanding's turtles. It is unfortunate that the peer review of the Coal Creek EIS is not on the county planning website. That peer review points out that several occurrences for Blanding's turtles are noted in the Ontario Reptile and Amphibian Atlas for the 10-kilometer square, including the site. It is also unfortunate that the Coal Creek EIS was not revised and updated to include that information. In view of these and other serious shortcomings of the developer's EIS, we feel justified in recommending 3 things. First, that the environmental impact study be revised in consultation with a herpetologist with training and experience in Blanding's turtles, and that the updated EIS be made available to the public for review and comment. Second, that the developer consult with a herpetologist to identify the potential impact to Blanding's turtles and to other turtle species from the proposed stormwater ponds in the Coal Creek and Loyalist Heights developments. These 2 stormwater ponds could well provide suitable habitat for turtles, and if so, Blanding's turtles will find their way to them. Third, that the county requires the developers of both the Coal Creek and Loyalist Heights subdivisions to work with a road ecologist with experience with Blanding's turtles to put in provisions to prevent road mortality on Sandy Hook Road and on new roads required to service the developments. Pecton would be pleased to put them in contact with a road ecologist experienced working with Blanding's turtles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from council? I'm seeing none. Thank you so much, Paula, for your deputation.
Thank you.
Or your comments, sorry. Next up, we have Amy Bodman from Prince Edward County Field Naturalists. Amy, as you probably know, you have 5 minutes.
When I timed it at home, it took me 5 minutes and 12 seconds. I hope you'll let me finish.
All of you have been like right at the 10-second to go mark, so I'll let you have an extra 12.
Thanks. Good evening. My name is Amy Bodman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Prince Edward County Field Naturalists in response to the draft Cold Creek Subdivision Development application. Thank you to Madam Chair and the Planning Committee for hearing my comment. The Prince Edward County Field Naturalists believe that the county made a grave mistake in the past, rezoning any part of the Warings Creek watershed as residential, especially the land incorporating its headwaters. We believe the correct zoning for this land is prime agricultural. We would like to respectfully remind Council that you have the authority to correct this mistake and reverse the zoning. By doing so, we believe you will benefit generations of county residents to come, as well as the biodiversity that ensures the sustainability of this very important ecological feature. Both the Cold Creek and Loyalist Heights subdivision developments are large subdivisions that incorporate a wetland that the Cold Creek EIS states serves as a headwater to Warings Creek. Warings Creek is the largest cold water stream in Prince Edward County. It is the defining feature of the Warings Creek subwatershed, which supplies groundwater to some of the most productive agricultural lands in the county. It is identified as a significant groundwater recharge area on Schedule D of our official plan and as an essential part of our natural heritage system on Schedule B. In the Picton secondary plan, it is identified as a special policy area requiring the implementation of low-impact development. The entire subwatershed covers a 17 square kilometer area culminating at Beaver Meadow Conservation Area, which is part of a provincially significant wetland. Due to new wetland evaluation rules introduced with Bill 23, Quinte Conservation and the MNRF can no longer help protect this wetland as an essential component of a very important subwatershed. Although the wetland contains the headwaters of Warings Creek, it can now legally be treated in terms of protection as a wetland distinct from the subwatershed. It is now up to the municipality alone to protect this wetland and the watershed it supports. We recognize that Council is under great pressure to find ways to fund enormous infrastructure projects and is therefore looking at large subdivision developments for support. We respectfully hope this does not blind you from protecting such an important natural heritage feature. We have 3 requests. The first is that the county require the incorporation of the most stringent low-impact development measures available, including infiltration islands and parking areas, use of permeable pavements, green roofs, biofiltration swales, rain gardens, cisterns, and rain barrels, and compact development. These measures should be applied consistently to both the Cold Creek and Loyalist Heights developments and to any other future developments proposed within the watershed. We request that a 50-meter buffer be applied to the wetlands with no averaging of the buffer. Section 3.1.4 of our official plan states, development shall not be permitted within 50 meters of an identified wetland other feature, i.e. unidentified wetland, unless the ecological function of the feature has been evaluated through an environmental impact study that demonstrates to the satisfaction of the county that there will be no negative impacts on the natural feature or its ecological functions. The Cold Creek EIS admits that despite the LIDs the developer plans to implement and the average 30-meter buffers it is recommending, that some warming of these flows will occur in the downgradient wetland, which is to receive these flows, as well as in other wetlands along the downgradient tributary of Warings Creek. That's a quote. Consequently, PECFEN does not feel that the developer has demonstrated that there will be no negative impacts on the natural feature of the wetland or its ecological functions. Our official plan also states, the Warings Creek subwatershed is a connected ecosystem that includes multiple features and ecological functions. No development shall occur within the riparian area extending a minimum 50 meters out from the top of the bank of the creek, and any additional wetlands or other features providing groundwater discharge to the creek and its tributaries. In response, the EEIS states that this policy contradicts the secondary plan, which calls for 30-meter buffers. However, Section 1.3C of our official plan states, when there is a conflict between the policies of this plan, meaning the official plan, and the policies of any secondary plan, the policies of the official plan shall prevail. Finally, we would like to point out that this EIS does not address the effect that added traffic on the roads it plans to build within the subdivision will have on insects, frogs, snakes, turtles, and other wildlife, nor the effect that greatly increased lighting from the development will have on the ecological functioning of the wetland. We respectfully ask that the Planning Committee send the draft back to address these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it was 18 seconds over. Oh, no, just kidding. Any questions from council? I'm seeing none. Thank you for your comments, Amy. Next up, we have Fred Lester. Fred, you have 5 minutes.
Thanks. I have no notes, but I've been making mental notes of the presentation I've seen here. I'm lying. I have 4 notes. I see 4 problems. Generally, with the project, I'm quite happy. I think Dave's done a great job of making this development. I regret to see agricultural land turned into pavement and houses, but that's the way of the future, unfortunately, and that property has been annexed to town. So I've got 4 points I want to raise that I think their engineers should be looking at perhaps again. Heineman Street and Upper Lake Street are 22 feet and 33 feet wide. And we're talking about 500 homes being serviced by a road that 2 cars can't pass on, Heineman Street. So I know you're going to develop that and, I don't know, push boundaries back or something. But I have a serious problem with the size of the road that's servicing this development. The only entrance for the first couple of phases through a very small road. So that really needs to be addressed. I have an issue with I own the Recplex property, the PFAC property, which has the unfortunate situation where the actual headwaters of Waring's Creek actually begin at Harvard Calnan's house at the ridge of the farm that is now a development. All of that catchment area, all the way over, like the entire thing that we're talking about developing here was Harvard Calnan's farm. And it all flows into Waring's Creek, all of it. So somewhere along the line, a highway was built and cut it in half, but the water still flows that way. And county has a huge file, I believe, with us on a dispute with the water that flows across the Recplex, the PFAC property. We've gotten nowhere with county because all of that catchment area north of the highway flows into a culvert, a new culvert that was put in, and flows past the No Frills gas bar, across our property, and then goes through a tiny culvert under the Millennium Trail. And when kids who think it's funny block it up, it turns the back end of the Recplex property into a pond. Or when it's choked with ice and the culvert is crushed to begin with. So that entire issue needs to be addressed to stop our property from flooding. But the engineer on the screen, Mr. Nelson, completely negated the fact that that water flows across the property, flows right across the development. That's where it starts. That mushy, the picture with the mushy water, or the mushy land, it was the beginning of the property, the water that flows across my land. So that needs to be addressed, seriously. Obviously, when you talk about concerns with expropriation of no frills next door, I think that it kind of makes my ears perk up a little bit too, because you're obviously going to be talking about expropriating my property as well. If you're expropriating theirs, you're going to be talking about expropriating mine, because that roadway has to cut across my property. That's not going to happen. The other thing that I've never noticed until the drawings you showed us tonight, the forced main goes in a kind of a zigzag pattern diagonally right across my property. This is the first I've heard of that. That's the force main of your sewage cutting right across my property. And I think the engineers should address that one as well. That's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'll take them.
Thank you for that. Those thoughts, Fred. Any questions from council? Just don't run away. Councillor Pennell.
So you're basically saying that all this stuff is all new to you tonight? And
Not,
no one
not
has,
all of it.
okay, but no one has had any discussion with you at all? The developer, the county?
I've spoken with Dave, I think, in the past, a year or two ago about, no, last year, about the roadway zigzagging through the property, and I think maybe we're still in discussions about that. But this is the first I've heard about sewage simply going right across my land.
Answers my question.
Could you turn off your mic, Councillor? Perfect, thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Lester? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have Kimberly McDougall. Kimberly? Yep. Excellent, you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Coffey was kind enough to give me the 30-page full report today that I got, so I read it from word to word, front to back. But so I learned a lot about this. This is a new issue that I've just learned about within a month and a half or so. Didn't realize who the developer was, and so on and so forth. And that the developer had, because I don't have access to being sent anything because I'm too far away, and by mail. So I went and got key maps and reports, and understood every single word, and overwhelmed because it's all a lot of it new information. And I'm very, very satisfied and very happy. The questions that were asked by council to this gentleman and to the developer floored me, literally floored me. And they were deep and meaningful, and they meant a lot, and they're very important. A lot of talking in circles, not a lot of direct responses and answers. First of all, I noticed to this gentleman and from the developer and from this department, a lot wasn't answered. And there's still, according to this, there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be done and looked at and finished thoroughly before anything can be approved completely, whether it's the first phase or anything. There's a lot of stuff that hasn't been done and finished. So to approve even the beginning of anything, even if it's 3 years off, to me as a citizen, and I'm an informed citizen now of everything, I don't think it's not ready. I don't think the council should be ready from what the councilors have actually brought up to the planning department, to the developer. There's a lot of work to be done still, even for the first approval to be done and anything to be started. That's all I can say tonight, because there's a lot, but I know I have 5 minutes. That's just what I can get through right now from me as to the council and to the developer and to you. And let's just hope there's another meeting, and let's just hope that we have more time for things to actually be done that have to be done, and then for questions to be thoroughly answered, properly answered, and spot on answered for everybody concerned, so that anything can move forward. Don't think we're ready yet. I don't think council's ready and satisfied. I don't think the developer's ready, and I don't think the community at whole is ready. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you to the council, and thank you to Mr. Cleave.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Any questions from?
Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No, excellent. Any questions from council? I'm seeing none. Thank you. Thank you for
so
your
much.
comments.
Thank you.
We have one more in person, Raj Dillon. I don't see Raj, so we are going to move on. So then next up online is Roxanne McKenzie. Did Roxanne, nope, not waiting in the wings, okay. Last but not least, do we have Laura Jameson online and waiting?
Laura, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Amazing, and I hope you can see me now as well.
We can, and I would just let you know you have 5 minutes.
Amazing, thank you so much. First and foremost, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Laura Jameson. I am a planner with Zelenka Preamo Limited. We are the planning consultants retained by Choice Properties, who own, obviously, the No Frills grocery store and mobile gas bar on Loyalist Parkway. And I'm here representing their interests this evening regarding the applications before you. Firstly, I would like to take a moment to thank staff for their presentation this evening, the applicant and their team for their overview of the proposed development, and council this evening for giving me the opportunity to speak to these applications. Prior to tonight's meeting, we did provide written comments highlighting some of our concerns about the prematurity of these applications, which I will reiterate briefly now. The proposed subdivision, in part, relies on Choice's lands, which are, again, on the north side of the Millennium Trail, to provide access to later phases of the subdivision. However, the servicing report, transportation report, and planning justification report lack any detailed analysis of the impacts on Choice's existing infrastructure and operations. The proposed extension of George Wright Boulevard cuts through the middle of the Choice lands, effectively dividing the lands and impacting the existing stormwater pond, sanitary and water servicing infrastructure, and potentially infrastructure related to the gas bar. The proposed road extension could cause complications with the operation of Choice's existing grocery store and gas bar. However, we are not able to confirm this as there has been no analysis of the impacts to adjacent properties included with the supporting materials. The proposed extension of George Wright Boulevard through the No Frills site has been identified in the staff report and incorporated into the overall design of the subdivision, even though this road has no legal status. It is our professional opinion that this connection is premature, as the proposed connection is not shown in any formal documentation and impacts to the existing operations of the Choice lands have not been considered. For additional perspective, as you may or may not be aware, we had submitted an application on behalf of Choice Properties for a zoning bylaw amendment on the No Frills site in December 2023 to permit additional uses on Choice's property. Now, 10 months later, our application has still not been brought before council because of a lack of support from staff who are of the opinion that this road connection must be provided by our client. At the time of our application submission, we were of the opinion that this road had no legal status, as it is not shown in any official plan, secondary plan, or transportation master plan schedules. Note that the figure in the staff report depicting the future George Wright Boulevard connection was obtained from a public information session presentation for the future Picton Transportation Master Plan, which is not in force and effect. To our knowledge, this council has not given any direction to approve this road connection through the official plan, secondary plan, or transportation master plan. Our opinion that this road connection has no approved status has not changed. We have since submitted an appeal of our zoning bylaw amendment application to the OLT for non-decision within the statutory timeline, which has been held for no other reason than our client's reluctance to dedicate a road connection which has no legal status. I will also note that under the Planning Act, the OLT cannot order that this road connection be provided. During discussions with staff regarding this potential road connection, we were advised that should a road cross through our client's lands, this road would generally be designed to a collector road standard, which has a right-of-way width of approximately 26 meters. Upon reading the materials before you for approval, it was noted that this connection was to be constructed to an arterial road standard, which has a width of approximately 30 meters according to the secondary plan. This is the first time we've heard any mention of this road connection being an arterial road, which furthers our concerns about implications on our clients' lands regarding existing development and any future development as well. Additionally, based on the information before you this evening, should you decide to move staff's recommendation for approval, it's noted that this road connection will still have no legal status. Further, Choice has been in continuous contact with the developer regarding this road connection and are open to continued negotiation. In conclusion, it is our professional opinion that the proposed applications before you today are premature, and the impacts of a future arterial road through our clients' lands should be assessed, and any impacts should be incorporated into the subdivision design prior to approval by this council. Thank you.
Wow, that was like 5 minutes on the dot. I'm impressed. We have one question from Councillor McNaughton. Councillor?
Hi, thank you very much for speaking tonight, and thank you for that, the context that you provide. I would note the road doesn't have legal status, but might someday. So that's, I mean, it could go, it could go that way. It's nice to hear that you're still willing to negotiate. And I'm just interested. I'm not aware of the contents of that zoning application, that zoning amendment application. Would you speak to what you're looking to do to develop that property?
Certainly, through you, Chair.
Sorry, can I just say, I think, Councillor McNaught, I think that's a little out of purview of this meeting, just because we're not talking about someone else's development file. We are specifically talking about this development file.
I don't believe it is, because if we're looking at, changing the stormwater infrastructure, that would be one thing. If they're looking to put in a great big building, then we really need to know that now, because that changes that perhaps changes what we could potentially be looking at doing tonight. It changes the timelines.
Okay, I would say, yeah, okay.
Through you.
Thank you.
Briefly, ultimately, the zoning bylaw amendment application that we'd submitted in December 2023 was to permit additional permitted uses. There were permissions for retail, commercial, restaurant uses, I believe, as well as health and personal care uses.
This is for the overall property, or the sort of corridor towards the end of George Wright Boulevard?
Point of order, Madam Chair. I think we're getting off topic here, and I don't think we're calling upon another business to disclose what their interest may be in the future.
I would actually agree with that. Specifically, I think it is good to know they are wanting to expand commercially, and potential use of the space will continue out, but I do think we should...
That's okay. We don't need to hear further detail. That pretty much answers my question, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And just okay, no, I think I'm good. Thanks very much. Thank you. You've brought some helpful information to this meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor McNaughton. Councillor St. Jean?
Could I ask for a couple of minutes to speak to the clerk on a matter that may be of a pecuniary interest with regards to this, this presenter?
I will actually pause you, if that's okay. Councillor Roberts now, if it is not, is it 100% specific to this?
I need to get some clarity from the clerk. Well, I might as well say, my son works for Loblaws.
Okay.
This planner, and if I leave the room, you no longer have a quorum. I did not know coming into this meeting that they were going to be here, that this was going to become a topic of conversation, and I now feel that I'm in a pecuniary interest here. So I need to confer with the clerk for a moment as to what I should be doing.
Thank you.
And the impact that it's going to have. If I leave the room, you have no quorum, you have no meeting.
Yes, so thank you for that clarity. I would like to, I want to give you that break with the clerk, and I also would like to just double check with Councillor Roberts as. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, not knowing that that the planners for Loblaws Properties was going to be here at the beginning of the meeting, I did not have a conflict of interest. But as they are a presenter, I am restricted from asking any questions or voting. Clearly, as per the procedural bylaw, I do not have to leave the room, but I cannot participate in any conversation as I am declaring that conflict of interest.
Are we back on? Are we back in the meeting?
Yeah, we're back
there's no
on.
sound in the Zoom.
There's no sound.
Now there is. Now you sound good.
2 seconds. I just want to say to the clerk, so what does that mean for a vote on this motion?
This would have to be deferred.
Okay, thank you for that. So with that, I would say, and there is no vote to defer, this is just deferred to the next active planning meeting.
Feasible.
Next feasible.
Planning and
thank you for that wording.
And development
planning meeting. I would, can I just have that for everybody that spoke today, if you would like to know when that meeting is, I believe that is in email through you or through Matt Coffey or Madam Clerk, correct? I'm getting a head nod, so if we can just, if you'd like to just know for sure when the next meeting is, please leave your name and email potentially with the clerk or planner on file, and then you will be aware of when to come. Councillor Hirsch?
Madam Chair, can we have some specificity as to the reasons for the deferral?
So
There
specific.
have been so many questions asked tonight, I think staff would need to know.
So specifically, the reason of the deferral tonight is because we will not have enough members of council. So we are breaking quorum with Councillor St. Jean not able to vote, which means that we do not have half of council or majority to make the vote. For all transparency's sake, we would be breaking our procedural bylaw. So as I do not need a motion to call this deferral, I am going to ask for a Princeton-led motion potentially that we call an end to, oh, no, never mind, Madam Clerk.
Yeah, through the chair, can we just do the delegated authority? And then we'll adjourn.
Yes,
please?
so that would be that we move on to item 6 point, what is now 3, items for delegated authority bylaw 98, 2022 for planning matters. Would anybody like to move, Princeton's moving it, anyone want to second this bad boy? Councillor Pennell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prince Pennell, motion that the items approved under Delegated Authority Bylaw 98-2020 as amended be received for information.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Now, item 7.1, Councillor Princeton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a Prince and Roberts motion. This meeting now adjourn at 10:10 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you for everyone that showed up.
Is the Zoom off?
Bye, Kate.
I mean, not the Zoom, is the YouTube off?
My stuff.